In this video, I want to talk about manifestation. So this is really about the application of theory into practicality. It's the metaphysical into the physical, okay? So I think that, because on my channel, I've noticed a few comments that were directed at me saying that my video was not practical and it's all just theory, so to speak. And I've heard that criticism from a few people throughout my life. But as I began to think about this idea, and actually I delivered the content in this video already in the shower, and it was so lucid. So this is just a tribute to what went on in the shower. I don't know if I can actually recreate what I spoke out before, but let's just give it a go. But this is just a tribute, the greatest video in the world. This idea that I have is basically, I think people, they say, oh, this has to be practical. But what they don't realize is that it is practical. The theory is a practical theory. They just lack the understanding of how to apply the theory. And so let me talk about that a little bit. So basically on this channel, my YouTube channel has a theme that is called the Library of the Mind, okay? And so at first, that's a double meaner. So you could say that is a collection of all the facts from all the books that I've read in different areas, and I've stored a library in my mind. That's one way of looking at it, okay? But another way of looking at it is a library of minds. So that's a little bit different. That's storing up like a reservoir of, or a container of different people's minds across time. Right? And so that's actually these two ideas play into the library of the mind. That's like a kind of idea or a mythology that kind of guides my personal development, all right? And so this channel is a manifestation of that. And also there's this other inner image that I have. And Jung talks about following these inner images and intuitions that you have. And so this other intuition or image that I have is called the mind collector. Now I flash a little image up so you can see a little bit of what I'm talking about. Now it's not just about that particular image. It's a living image in me. So it can't be personified in just one form or particular picture. But this particular image that I'm showing you now gives you a good idea of kind of what I'm talking about. So this idea I have called the mind collector, okay? And so it's basically, I have this idea that I have these heads on my belt, like I'm riding a horse in like some medieval time, and I have like Carl Jung's head cut out and it's tied to my belt. I've got Nietzsche's head tied to my belt. I've got Freud's head tied to my belt. I've got Plato and Aristotle, I've got their heads chopped off. Now, I'm not there yet, and who knows if I could really chop some of these guys' heads off. Like Nietzsche, for example. I don't know if I can, that's a big head. I don't know if I can chop that sucker off. But, whether or not I can do that or not, it doesn't matter. The idea is of the mind collector is that you are not just collecting the facts of the books that they've written or the facts of the thoughts that they've thought about, but you're actually collecting and stealing their mind in the sense that you're stealing their perception. You're stealing the way that they view things and look at things, okay? And so that is the unique thing that I'm trying to talk about, is that the library of the mind could be a library of minds, with the idea of the mind collector. So I'm taking, on this channel, I'm taking the mind of Carl Jung and I'm trying to deep dive into it to take not just the theory from him, but to take his perception of how he sees things. And now, it's not so I want to become a slave of Carl Jung. That's the whole idea of cutting off their head in the end. So I'm not up to that yet. I haven't cut off Carl Jung's head yet, but that's my objective, is to cut his head off. And so what that means is I've bathed my mind into his mind, and I'm able to come up with a particular perception of the world. And that's his particular perception. But he was a genius. So if I take his perception of the world, and I have my perception, and I take other people's perceptions, I then get a buildup of different ways of analyzing the world. So you see, the psychoanalysts, for example, as a group of people throughout history, they have a particular perspective and a particular perception of how they view humanity and people and history and the world. And that gives us insight, the psychoanalysts. That's just one way of looking at things. The behavioralists are different. You see, so each school of thought, each different person or individual or whatever it is, science or discipline, adds a particular perception and value that you can use in the world. Okay, so when I'm talking about the library of my mind, and I'm talking about all these different theories, you might think that's all theoretical. But the thing is that you don't know my mind yet, because I'm actually someone I'm a dominant intuitive person. Okay, so according to the Jungian typology, again, I'm using theory to describe how I am as a person and my disposition towards life. Okay, so I am intuitive. That means that I act metaphysically. Okay, so I am making metaphysical actions right now by showing you, revealing to you an insight, and delineating and articulating the possibilities and potentialities of a particular way of viewing theory, manifesting that into practicality. Okay, so I am naturally theoretical in a sense, because I am intuitive. I value the idea of things. Okay, but that doesn't mean I'm not practical. Now, a lot of intuitives aren't practical, but the thing is when I'm talking about the theories that I'm talking about, I automatically assume and understand their implications of practicality. Whereas I'm not always verbalizing those implications because I'm focusing on educating you about the theory. And so you don't always get to see the practicality of the theoretical knowledge that I'm talking about. So I'm moving and acting in a metaphysical way, and you or the audience or other people may not be able to see the line and the connection between the metaphysical aspects and the physical, between the theory and the practical. And so this actually happens in psychology quite a lot. Even a lot of psychologists don't understand how to apply the theories they're using or the theories that they're learning. And so, yes, we understand that a theory in a textbook may not match with real life. But what I often find is it's not the theory that was wrong, it's the person has an inability to not only understand the theory to begin with. So most people can't even understand theories because they're not good at grasping these metaphysical constructs or whatever they are, right? So that's the first problem. They don't even understand or conceptualize or have the right perception to understand what the theory is. But the second thing is, do you have the ability to look at the theory, read it, lift it off the page and understand its meaning, then look out into the world and then apply that theory appropriately? That is what most people can't do. So you might go to university for 3 years, learn theory, be able to factually write down the theory, as a factual memory of the written form of a theory, but not be able to understanding the meaning behind it and then be able to see it in the world and apply it, or see the potentialities of how a theory can kind of dynamically unfold out in the real world. So the problem, my friends, is it's not a lack of practicality. It's a lack of perception, of understanding how theory applies to your practical life. The library of my mind, or the library of your mind, the mind collector. These are theoretical things that I've made up or that have come to me in my intuitions. But they have a very practical application, and that's this. Think about it. Think about the mind collector. You're taking the perceptions of different people, Nietzsche, Jung, and you're applying them. Now, back in the day, when people didn't know that there was lots of different ways to tie knots, for example, in a rope, for example. Now, you might have a rope, right? And there's one way of tying it. Now, if you don't have the perception or the understanding of how to tie that rope in multiple different ways for different uses, you're not going to get the most out of that rope. So even something as simple as rope throughout the history of humanity has, the application of a different perception of how to use that physical object changes and helps you expand the possibility and potentiality of how to use the rope. That's the same with these theories and applying them to the world that you see. See, so Jung's process of individuation, that's a very practical thing. That's actually the most practical. It's like your life. It's your existence. So you think about this, like someone doesn't get along with their marriage partner. Okay, they're a type of person who they're a bit slow. They can't update their perception very well. They're not really getting how to think and understand their partner's mind. Okay, what's going to happen? You tell them, you have to do this. You have to be kinder. You have to talk more. You have to explain how you feel, show that you love them. And the guy says, great, okay, you've told me what to do, I'm going to go and do it. And then what does the guy do? He tries, he puts in a bunch of effort, he buys flowers, he's trying to talk. But the thing is he's doing all these things. So he's physically doing things to try to help the relationship. But what's he missing? He's not understanding or perceiving or understanding the perception that his partner has. Therefore, he can't actually act specifically and appropriately to her specific perception and understanding of the world. Okay? Because you have to really be able to understand the other person, to understand their needs, to understand how their personality is structured and moving, to be able to match and meet and comfort that other person and show them the love that they deserve and need. You see, so these are examples where it's not that I'm saying not to be practical or just to be theoretical. I'm saying that the theoretical has been devalued because people actually don't understand it very well and don't have the right perception because they haven't collected enough minds to understand the practical applicability of the manifestation of these ideas, okay, or these theories. So that's what I'm trying to tell you today. That and think about this. Jung, he is a theorist. So a lot of his writings contain theories, but on the one hand, because he definitely studied philosophy and all that, so he was deep into that. So even when he talks about Freud in some of his interviews, he says, I studied Kant, and that was far from Freud. He says it in his accent. That was far from Freud. And so can't, that's all metaphysical stuff. Okay, like it's not. Okay, but so he's got the metaphysical, he's got the philosophy, the psychology, and the theories he creates. But you got to remember, he's a doctor, like, so he's actually working with patients, and he's a clinician. He's a clinician. So he's creating theories, in other words, that are highly practical. And that's why he creates them. That's the whole purpose of doing that, is to make it as practical as it can be. But the problem is that psychology is just a very difficult situation to make practical, because almost by definition it is theoretical. Because it's the aspect of the world that is about the idea, you see? But that doesn't mean there is not a link to the physical or the practical. And so that's what I'm trying to talk about in this video about manifestation. So remember, all the videos I've created, even though a lot of them are theoretical or about information, all that information, if you have the right perception or the mind to understand it, you can then apply all those theories to a practical manifestation in your life, okay? And so you might need help with that. You might need to learn more, okay? But this is my task and my goal, is to study these great minds enough to be able to chop off their head. In other words, like, it's that whole idea of, if you see the Buddha along the way, then kill him. Okay, that's like a famous, kind of idea or like dictum or something, right? In Buddhism, I'm pretty sure. And so the idea behind that is, like, you don't worship, people that you're trying to emulate. You're basically there to overcome them. And so that's my idea anyway, is I'm not here to, like, put Jung on a pedestal or put these guys on a pedestal, but I look up to them in the sense that they're ahead of me and they're a lot smarter than me. But until I bathe my mind in their work long enough, I'm going to keep going. And so I'm going to keep understanding these great minds, and keep making material on what they believed and the theories that they had. But it all has a practical application as well. And so maybe I could do a bit better at making some videos about the practical application. But again, knowing me as a person, I'm a metaphysical actor. So I am taking action, but I'm taking action metaphysically. And so, I'm creating ideas and potentiality, and I'm hoping that you guys can hook into that and grab it and apply it to your own life. And that's another thing. I don't know you all individually. So in actuality, you have to take what I say, if you want it to be practical, and apply it specifically to your life, because that's if you wanted to do that, if you thought it was valuable to do so. Because I don't know who you are, so I can't give you specific practical advice for the specific situation that you're specifically in. And so that's a part of the process of being flexible, being open, and being creative, and having the lens or the psychology or the mind to see potentiality. So you grab onto an idea, right, that someone has, you see its potential, and you can see how creatively you can fit it into your life, into a certain way, and how you can then manifest the fruit of that metaphysical tree into physical fruit, right? So that's the thing. We have to get better at. I think as a society, we're lacking, because we send people to university trying to pump people out, thinking that we just throw a book at them. But the thing is that the linking process between theory and manifestation is really what we're lacking in our world. We need people who understand how to lift a theory off the page and apply it correctly. And until we can do that, we can't criticize the theory itself yet. Now, there's a lot of bogus crap theories. Not every metaphysical action or theory is as good as another theory, right? So there's different theories of different quality, the same as there's different actions of different quality. But until we can actually discern the difference between, is it just you're just bad at understanding how to manifest a certain thing, or is it actually there is a problem with the theory itself? So, until we can distinguish between those two things, I think people should zip their mouth a little bit and be humbled, because these great minds, when you understand really what they're saying and you can see the practical manifestation of those ideas, like for example, Jungian psychology is literally about the transformation of your personality. That's why it delves into alchemy and all this. And I think, oh, alchemy, it's so old. I remember my mum, she sent me a text one day. She said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm studying psychology or something. I'm studying this guy. I said, I'm studying Carl Jung. And then she goes, oh, when was that released? Or whatever, how old's that material? And I said, oh, at the beginning of the 1900s, and she was like, oh, that's very old. You should move on to something new. My mum, God bless her, she doesn't understand that just because something's older doesn't make it less true or less valuable, so, and it is good to understand the modern understanding of things, how things progress and all that. But just because it's newer doesn't mean it's better, but on my channel, I have tried to delve into some newer psychology stuff. I got Psychology 101 videos on there. They didn't perform very well, and I didn't have much time to always keep creating that series. I might still go back and create it and create a snappy version, make it more, snappy, so I'm not wasting people's time. But that aside, is that this is what we have to, I think, value again in the world and value in our life, and understand how do we actually manifest something. We have to think in potentialities. And I think this is another perception or mindset or framework of thinking that people lack tremendously in the world, and they need it right now. It's the be able to perceive the potentiality of things. I've touched on it in other videos, but it applies to this concept of theory and applying the theory to life to manifest that theory or to manifest a particular result. And so in order to grasp the process of manifestation, you have to understand and be able to perceive through a mind that can see potential in the world. That's what you have to be able to do. That's the kind of mind that is going to be able to best grab onto a theoretical basis and apply it appropriately in the world to get the best manifesting result. Okay, so that's what I'm always trying to do, is I'm trying to build and grow and develop my personality. Personality change. What more practical could you get out of that? You as a human being, as a person, your actual mind begins to change and develop, and you actually see and perceive the world in a completely different way, so you can see and open up the possibilities of what the world can give you. So you're not locked in a little box, but you're opening your mind up to the potentiality of what you can manifest in the world. Okay, so the metaphysical is the key to opening up the understanding of how to maximize your potential in the physical. Because without the theoretical basis, in other words, without the imagination, the creative power of the imagination, you're never going to see a manifestation in the physical, in the world around you. Okay, so cultivating imagination, understanding and stealing minds, or gaining new perceptions and perspectives on the world and different frames of thought. Okay, this is the type of metaphysical action that helps you create a mindset and a personality that is so powerful that you see potential in the real world and you manifest who you really are on the inside on the outside. So this whole process of manifestation, okay, starts with imagination and it ends in the manifestation of it, of that imagination. And so, look, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave in the comment section things that you want to learn about, things that you need help with, and I will try to find a solution, metaphysically or physically. I'll try to find something and create videos about it if I think it's a good topic for my channel, okay? So, or I might just leave a comment and we can just talk and stuff like that. So, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video.